Well, hello, good evening, folks. Hope you're well. It's the 18th, I think, Monday. Bloody hate Mondays. Very tiring day because you've got all this catching up to do, haven't you? And anyway, welcome aboard. Thanks for the very kind comments so far um, on previous videos. Not sure really if the number of viewers or commenters are reduced by YouTube, possibly quite deliberately. Um, a lot of regulars seem to have fallen off the radar. Whether I've pissed them off or not, I don't know. But hey ho, um, perhaps they're just busy. We all lead very busy lives, don't we? Busy, 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 achieving very little most of the time, running around in circles. But we are such strange things, aren't we, humans? I often accuse myself, really, of going through melancholy blues. Uh, just wishing I could turn the clock back, but there's a big caveat to that. I'd love to go back in time and know what I know now. Oh, wouldn't that be heaven? Yeah, I'm sure everybody who's ever been on this world and died eventually has thought that. Because hindsight is such 2020 vision, isn't it? It's good all round vision. If only I had my time again. But the problem is, by the time we think we know everything, and we shuffle off this mortal coil, even naturally, we can't go back. What's the bloody point then? You think you're taking all this knowledge with you? And you wonder, and I often feel a lot sorrier, for people who are far more intelligent than me, because they're losing more. You know, I only have so much in my brain. I'm not a complete genius. I may be a legend in my own lunch break, I suppose, in my own mind, be it. But I know my limits. And but I know there are some fabulously clever people, and they will take their tune to the grave with them, won't they? Very sad. Pity we can't download it onto a USB chip and hand it over to our children. Take care of this, it's everything I know, my son, and you pass it on, and they plug it in, and wouldn't that be wonderful? It's very strange. I listened to a fabulous video last night of this black woman. I only say she's black because I want to identify her, but I can see if I find the link. She is apparently the copyright holder of the Terminator and Matrix series, and you would never have guessed it, that she started those stories. And yet the whole thing, the Terminator and the Matrix series, was hijacked from her and made into a film and a series called The Matrix, which we know. But this bird, the one I watched last night, God, she has won something like 300 million quid. Well, $300 million from the producers of such things like Terminator and The Matrix. I thought, wow, my God, now that won't be in the press. You got to be kidding. No, but they made billions with the Terminator and The Matrix. The people who produced it and passed themselves off as having the rights to do so, and they didn't have the rights to do so because she wrote the bloody things. Such thievery goes on, doesn't it? But she's had her day in court, and everybody has their day in court, I suppose, and she's won, bless her. And she was a very fascinating woman to listen to. And I'll try and find the video, which I'll pop underneath, if I can find it again. Part of late night viewing. But I was gobsmacked at this woman because she's incredibly bright, and you could walk past her in the street and not give her a second glance, quite frankly. But to know that she started the brainchild of the Terminator and the Matrix series, because she was a visionary. She knew precisely the way it's going, and they are both true stories, quite frankly. because this is how she manages to do it. And I found it a fascinating thing. So, good luck to her. But the purpose of this video, I suppose, tonight would be in my melancholy blues, is to look back at the old videos that people have done. And I often watch videos that people are posting on the internet now of people in America who will film silent movies, and some of them have got sound to them, amazingly, from 1907 onwards. And you look at these old folk who are very happy. This was America folk in the, between 1910 and 1920, and even before 1907, one of them. And there were sound ones as well. And I was looking, these people, my God, I was looking, the American ones, I was looking for the black people. There wouldn't be any, of course, not really, not that many, if there were any at all. And you think, my God, they obviously, stuck to themselves. And you look at their clothing, and the way they spoke was entirely different, and it went through the ages. And then they shot a black and white scene of the occupation of the Champs-Élysées in France by the Nazis as they invaded the French, and the wimps stuck their hand up and said, "Oh, don't don't shoot." Bloody French. A bit different nowadays, of course. But no, look what's happening. It's just ridiculous. But you think, well, when I watch these videos, I can't help thinking, well, they're all dead now. Isn't that a strange thing to think? They're all dead now. Well, of course they are. They were 80 in the bloody film, for God's sake. But they seem so happy. In their ignorance almost. They were very happy. And yet we're in the most technological advanced era now that we've ever been in, of course we are. And yet we're so bloody miserable. What does it take to keep human beings happy? A sense of self-worth. We all have our own sense of self-worth, but we're just machines now, aren't we, for the system? Little tax-paying units. And look at what we wear. In the olden days, people had such pride in what clothes they wore. Now, I'm not extolling the benefits of designer clothes. As you know, I'm not a designer clothes person. But I have to be honest with you. I don't understand, for example, why people will come from the Middle East, our ethnic Islamic brethren, turning up in the UK claiming God knows what benefits, with their potentially four wives and 16 children. They could all have 4 children per wife, so do the maths. This is the potential of such people. And yet they strut around. Number one is they strut around the streets acting as though they own the joint with a God-given right, never having lifted a finger to defend this country from aliens, loose term. But they strut around with such arrogance. And they wear the most ridiculous clothes that are designed for sunny climes. These silk alchemies, they're called. The garb that they all wear into the mosques. Not that I'm being racist, you understand, but this is the thing. This is the uniform of such people. And the children are running around like pickaninnies, as one famous politician, Rivers of Bloodspeech, called them, and he's quite right, they are. Lippy, gobby little shites, most of them, with an air of self-righteousness and about them, this country's mine, we're taking over. This is the arrogance of such people. But even the children wear ridiculous clothes. I feel sorry for the girls having to wear these hijabs or the burqas, and I just think how ridiculous this is. The point is this: the reason that women apparently wear burqas, and I have this on good authority, in places like Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and it is the Arabs actually say that originally women were made to wear burqas because the locals feared that the fallen angels would steal their wives from them if they noticed how beautiful their women were. What a crock of shit, quite frankly. It's all about control, the male dominance over a female, that's all. There's nonsense about it's to hide the beauty of our women. Have you seen some of the women under the burqa? Really? They're doing us a favour by covering half of them up, quite frankly. But I think it's an affront to control what a human being wears on her head from sperm to worm, birth to death. It's certainly a handicap being born a woman in such countries, don't you think? And yet they continue this crap. When they come over to England, strutting up and down, watching as yet another mosque is being built. How many do they need? And yet they insist on wearing their garb that they have come to the country with and impose upon our eyes in the streets of Great Britain. In the inclement weather, they're still wearing something that's designed for plus 35 degrees centigrade and upwards. And they put anoraks on top. Yet they just... Do they know how ridiculous they look? Do they give a shit? It seems not. Well, and I just think it's another thing, another control thing. Fine, their Quran says this is how they have to dress. Well, if only they knew that the Quran was penned by the bloody Catholic Church with the assistance of the Jesuits to control those people of that country under the thumb. That's all. Because at that time, of course, we had the Christians and we had the other lot. But then we had a third party we had to deal with then because we wanted a bit of their country. We've got to control the Arabs. And how do you control them? I know, we'll give them a religion that is so insane, we'll write the book backwards. Okay? And it'll be written by an illiterate prat who's a paedophile. I mean, that is adding insult to injury, isn't it? Wasn't Muhammad a paedophile? Married an 8-year-old and consummated at 9 or something like that? Excuse my ignorance, I haven't quite read it. Didn't get over the first page, quite frankly. Started at the wrong end. Turned the book round that way, turned it round that way, flicked it left to right, still didn't make bloody sense. Well, it wouldn't, would it? I did hear a vicious rumour that the reason they read right to left is that's the way the sun rises and sets in their country. But not in this country. It rises on the left and sets in the east and sets in the west. And that's why we write from left to right in the Western society, because that's the way the sun goes. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but it's quite a good little thing to say. But how stupid. You know, it's bad enough, isn't it? It's bad enough. Fashion, this word fashion. A dedicated follower of fashion is, well, why can't they be dedicated to something worthwhile and not so transient? I saw some videos the other day of this paedophile, what was his name? You want to be in my gang, my gang, my gang. Oh yes, Gary Glitter. I know. And it's funny, isn't it, how these people are paedophiles and kiddie fiddlers, really. You look at people like Cliff Richard. Okay, I think his surname was Webb. And it certainly wasn't Cliff Richard when he signed into a boys' home with the fat politician called Cyril Smith one day. They both signed themselves in under their real names, the fools, into a boys' home. Mr. Cliff Richard, aka Mr. Webb, and Cyril Smith. And oh, Chris is not homosexual, and of course he's not a paedophile. Are you having a laugh? He's still single, isn't he? That's no pedigree of being a paedophile, of course, but I suppose when you've got it in your blood. He's never been quite a straight racket, has he? He's always been a little bit odd. He's had some absolute darling babes who are interested in fans. But he always has, like, the young ones. That was one of his records, wasn't it? The young ones. But Cyril Smith, I mean, for God's sake, the guy was so fat he had his own gravity. He had his own circle of planets going around him, for God's sake. You know, he was an influence on the tides, I tell you. He was enormously fat, this blob, this lard ass. I'm surprised, but why do they pick on the children? And this fat bastard used to waltz into the Houses of Parliament half-cut with his flies undone over his beer belly hanging out. I mean, he should fit right into the modern-day politicians that are sitting on the front bench, like Kenneth Clarke, another known paedophile, allegedly. Yes, well, the Houses of Parliament, it's almost compulsory. You have to have an interest in children if you're going to be successful in the Houses of Parliament. Otherwise, you'd end up becoming an also-ran. Is he straight, or does he putt from the rough on occasions? Oh no, he's a putt from the rough. He's got a bit of a handicap. Well, you know what the handicap is, don't you? Because the majority of them come from public schools. They're all gay or paedophiles. You will have such a wonderful career. If that's your thing. Well, and the House of Lords, that's for special ones, isn't it? The special needs. This is where we put the pedos out to grass. Yes, the ones who haven't committed suicide or died of shame, like Ted Heath from The Morning Cloud. Yet another paedophile murdering bastard that he was. He actually had a couple of yachts called the Morning Cloud, and he was under obbo from the police. They knew his little games, sailing from Guernsey, and he used to take boys out on day trips on the Morning Cloud, 4 or 5 of them, and there was never 4 or 5 counted off. And he apparently was quite a maniac when he used to get dressed up, according to one boy who did survive the ordeal, and it all came out when Ted Heath had died. What a strange thing to happen. It always happens when they've died, doesn't it? Or MI6 have got to them first and knocked them off before they get blackmailed and spill the beans and bring the country into disrepute all themselves. Leon Britton rings a bell. Yes, this is a man who had a list of known paedophiles in the cabinet and the Houses of Parliament, and those who often worked in the BBC. But when the police went to find this list, which apparently was lodged in the house of Leon Britton, my boy, yes, the then Home Secretary, he suddenly developed very fast-acting cancer. Well, for Christ's sake, talk about coincidence and bad luck, chummy. We can't find the list of known paedophiles that was being harboured in the man's house, which he did have, because he was on the list himself. It went missing. Wow, call me old-fashioned. These things happen, you know. Nothing stranger in China, eh? But the BBC, another prerequisite for the weirdos, isn't it? It seems that as qualification for getting into anything like the media, you have to putt from the rough. You've got to be a bit deviant in any other behaviour. It's a nation of paedophiles. It's run by a paedophilic government. It's supposed to be a big upstanding parliament, and the regalia, even the royal family are heavy into it, aren't they? Oh, for sure. There was a video a few years back of a young boy climbing down the side of Buckingham Palace. He's obviously the sacrificial lamb that got away. He was going to be offed that night, but it was in the paper. It was on video. You can check it out. Boy escaping from Buckingham Palace. Well, what was he there? Why is he escaping? Why wasn't he climbing out the window, shuffling down the side of Buckingham Palace? That went very quiet. Absolute blank on press coverage about that one, wasn't it? Fancy a boy disappearing like that, shimmying down the drain pipe of Buckingham Palace. Never got to the end of that one, did we? No, it all went very quiet. Yes, well, little shyster got away. Never had a chance to terminate him and drink his adrenazone, did they? The blood-soaking adrenaline. He would have had it that night for sure. But the little lamb managed to untie himself. Bless him. Must have pissed off Prince Philip, of course, the one who likes to drink such stuff. You know, the one who wants to come back as a mosquito or a virus to kill the rest of humanity because he thinks there's too many of us. Well, I hope he bites his own lip, to be frank. I mean, the guy, 93 years old, and he's just had a hip replacement a year or so ago. What a waste of bloody money, really. And I do have it on good authority that following the crash in his Range Rover, the investigating police noticed that the seatbelt clip, when you plug it in onto a Range Rover, puts a light out when you put your seatbelt on, because it's a reminder of wear your bloody seatbelt. And that facility was apparently disabled in Prince Philip's car. That means he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Well, get this, he's got away with the whole thing, of course, endangering other people's lives. Okay, chances are, he was half cut. You know, driving recklessly, half cut. Obviously trying to get back in time for the next sacrifice. And had a crash in his 4x4 Yes, and he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Oh, well, bless him, he's surrendered his driving licence now. 93, still driving? Seriously? Goodness me. Well, there we are. They can get away with it, you see. Had it been you or me, we would have been in trouble for disabling our seatbelt clicker to say, wear a seatbelt. It's against the law to drive in this country without a seatbelt unless you have a complete medical reason, and there was no reason why Prince Philip shouldn't have been wearing a seatbelt. You see, they're above the law, these shysters, and yet they make the laws, don't they? And this is such hypocrisy. So the world is full of trickery, isn't it? It's nonsense, really. And by the time you wake up and smell the coffee, you know, you're getting on a bit like me, and you think, it's all crap. It's all showtime. And I mentioned Gary Glitter earlier on, when you look at what clothes he used to wear. Do you want to be in my gang, my gang, my gang? And you look at the stupid bloody haircuts. And you listen to other people like David Bowie. A tuneless prick, if ever I heard. Couldn't sing in tune. But my God, what a career of singing out a tune. He made an art at it. He turned singing tunelessly into an art form. David Bowie. This is Major Tom to ground control. For God's sake. You know, beam me up, Scotty. And there's plenty of talent queuing up that can sing and charm the angels from the clouds. But we have to have some prick like, you want to be in my gang, Gary Glitter, who was living on his friend's bloody city at the time. It just shows you they can make an alleged silk purse out of a sow's ear any time they like, don't they? And we buy the records, we cheer 'em on. And you look at half the pricks that work in the BBC or the media nowadays. There is zero talent. They're just talking heads. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, just swing their legs around that way and swing their little legs that way and sexy short-cut clothes. And oh, it's a leg parade, everybody. And the camera goes from dumb bimbo to another blonde bimbo and then a brunette bimbo, and we have the prat in the middle. You'll notice that there's always one male and two females, and the male has been put in its place. Probably chances are he's a pansy anyway. You know, people like Piers Morgan, another toff. What a prick. Sorry, but Piers Morgan. I'm sorry, but if this is the best the BBC or Sky News or whatever can have, I don't even know where he appears now since I don't watch television anymore. I thought this is it, and to have him on X Factor, it's almost as bad as having Louis on X Factor. It's bad enough having Simon Cowell on X Factor, quite frankly. I mean, one of the schadenfreudic moments for me the other day was to see, by default, I was visiting someone and they had X Factor on and Simon Cowell's still giving it large. And I thought, just looking at him, I thought, bloody hell, he looks old. All of a sudden, Simon Cowell is starting to look old. It's like, Simon, we can't do any more for you, love. You're just going to have to go old now, gracefully. And the guy's falling apart. With all his money and yada 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 and his influence. How much money is enough? Well, Rothschild said, when I've got that little bit more, my boy. It's not about the money, is it? Because these people don't care about the money. What they're lacking is something to bloody do that is worthwhile. This is what they're all searching for, a meaning in life, a purpose in life, and they haven't got one. They haven't. None of them have got talent of their own. Oh, they're talent spotters. Well, a talent spotter hasn't got any talent. And they ride on the back of those who have. It's like being a record manager, a label manager, record label manager. You find a band that's got bags of talent and you parasite off them. There's a great movie, Queen, isn't it? I watched it the other day. I thought it's a marvellous movie. I quite like Freddie Mercury. And I like Queen. Amazing band. And I actually got quite welled up in the eye department at the end of that because I thought, apart from anything else, the whole thing was a tragedy, wasn't it, really, with Freddie Mercury? And I felt for the man, quite frankly. I did. I think he was an amazing man. Very few people left like him on the world, Freddie Mercury. Great talent. And Queen's music is exceptional. Bohemian Rhapsody being the number one, in my opinion. But you look and you think, well, would the others of Queen have made it without Freddie? It wouldn't have been the same, would it? Not really, because he was an amazing singer, amazing musician, amazing talent. Pity he putted from the rough on occasions on that night and a little bit silly, but there we are. And I often wonder whether they'd still be going right now this day if Freddie had still been kicking. But that was talent. But if you look at the pop out there today that's being promoted by the media and playing on our radios, it's nothing. It's all auto-tune fannies, isn't it, really? Quite disappointing. Auto-tune. I can tell songs that have been sung with auto-tune. And it's quite a sad affair, auto-tune. I think you know what I mean. But it's all image. It's all false, isn't it? And somebody will show a video of these people when they're all dead. In 50 years, they'll be showing all the old lot. And they're saying, look at them. Look at how they used to be in 2018 and 2019. Ha 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 ha. It's a bit like the Cadbury's Smash, with the robots mashing up. And they were talking about the old ways where we used to mash up real potatoes after we boiled them to make mashed potato. And they had these little robots. And they were taking the piss out of the way humans used to mash up potatoes. What did they do then? They smashed them to pieces. Ha 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 ha. We were the laughing stock of the robots. It was a great, great advert. But we don't have any originality like that now, do we? So, it's ever likely. If you were to wind the clock back and look back on our century, It's been a century of wars, famine, disease, fighting, bickering, voting, and the people being overridden. But here's the good news, if there is any. There's a new day dawning. This is what they're all saying. Not a sunset setting between two mountains, folks. It's a sunrise between the two mountains. It's a new day dawning, folks. It's in the literature, it's in the papers, it's in every politician's speech somewhere or other. Even Jimmy Carter had it on the back of his book after he got elected. I can see a new day dawning. That's code word for I'm part of the communist way forward. Because we're headed towards communism so fast. So fast. I can feel it in my bones. It is a new dawn rising. You see a new day. It's a new dawn rising. And even if you look at some of the stuff where the king and queen, the queenie and the king sit on ceremonial occasions, behind them, right behind their heads above it, you'll see a triangle with a circle in the middle. And you think, what's that all about? The triangle with the circle in the middle. It's like, oh, I wish you'd never told me that now, because I'm finding triangles and circles in them all the time. I am. But it's the sun rising. It's a new dawn rising. They're saying we're part of their gang. It's the sun rising from a mountain. It's not a bloody pyramid. They just can't be so blatant. It's subtle, man. It's subtle. They're all at it, folks. Inch by inch, we go communism. We are headed towards it so fast. And we can't see it coming. But I don't care, I'm really optimistic because, hey, there's a new day dawning, man. Sign the paper, sign your life away, you've got to do that. We'll be carrying ID cards sooner or later, and the next phase will be microchipping our kids. We microchip our pets nowadays. They'll do it on the kids next, and then they'll do it to the adults. We do it now anyway, we carry our mobile phone around with us, may as well be microchipped because they know where we are. They'll type in your name, your address, and they'll find you by you carrying your mobile phone around. Whether you turn it off or not. You think you've turned your phone off, but I bet you haven't. The only sure way of knowing that is to take the battery out. But then you'll find that the phone will have a capacitor inside it, which very slowly discharges, but provides sufficient power for someone to trace where you are. Best solution is don't carry your mobile phone around with you. There we are. But the next phase is wearables, and we've got those with iPhone watches. iWatch, Fitbit. Another invasive thing. And the next thing then, it'll be the wearables like Google Glass, or it'll be the implant. Millennials seem to be quite content. They've got nothing to hide. Doesn't matter where I am. I don't care if they know where I am. They lose the point. They've missed the point. It's the principle. But we don't have principles anymore, do we? Not really. We've sold our soul. Because our privacy seems not to be important to us anymore, otherwise we wouldn't give it away so freely. Well, I don't care because there's a new day dawning. I can see the sun coming by the mountain, facing east. Well, there we are, folks. One day somebody will look at our videos that we do on YouTube and say, my God, he was right or she was right. They were reminiscing about people in 1870 and 1920s. And they'll be reminiscing about 2018. I wonder if they'll be chipped. We'll wait and see, shall we? Maybe we'll be back in time to have a look. Take care. Love you all.